Okay, shall I start?
Please
Okay.
introduce the
So,
program.
dear learners of
1 minute,
PGDSS,
1 minute. Madam, 1 minute, 1 minute.
recording कर रहे हो.
Okay. Dear learners, as you know, today we are going to discuss on human resource and eco-friendly lifestyle. To discuss this topic, my colleague Dr. Diksha Dabe is with us. And as you know, we usually do counseling whatever the students, learners wants in their comfortable time. In this time, Madam was not feeling good, and in the sense that she was caught up with COVID. So 1 month back, she was hospitalized. After that, also, she wants to interact with our learners. That's why
हाँ गौरव
she is
मम्मी के नंबर पे कॉल करिए
voluntarily taking the class.
हाँ गौरव मम्मी के नंबर पे कॉल करिए कर लीजिए
So in the last session, we have discussed about environment and education. What is the growth of environment and education status in India? When we are talking about sustainability, the need is, to achieve the sustainable development goal by 2030, whatever we're talking about, and to bring a sustainable planet. For first and the foremost thing we need to bring is human resource development in one side. And other side, as we know that issues of sustainability is because of the lifestyles we are following from since industrial era, from the beginning of industrial era. So let us try to understand how human resource development it's very much important to speed up the progress of achieving sustainable development goals by 2030, and what kind of eco-friendly lifestyle we have to follow. So to talk to this, my colleague Dr. Diksha Dabe is with us. She has been teaching, before she joined IGNOU, she was teaching in teaching line, and now in IGNOU, and from the last 10 years, she's playing an important role in developing different programs which is related to sustainability environment. And in fact, she's closely involved in sustainability science program, taking a number of initiatives to promote this sustainability science discipline across the country. So I welcome you on behalf of the learners in this session, madam.
Yes.
She is part of our, she is also in the team, but on behalf of the learners, I mean to welcome you here. So I'm giving back this session to you, madam. Please.
Thank you, sir, for the generous introduction. And we are part of the Sustainability Science Group. So there is nothing called introducing, and we are all a part of it. Dear learners, it is a pleasure for me to be amongst you in spite of so many delays. We have been postponing this class from 21st to 22nd, and today is 24th. I'm with you. I'll try my level best to explain you the concepts of human resource development and eco-friendly lifestyle. So let us begin. First of all, there are two parts of the session. One is of human resource development, and another part talks about eco-friendly lifestyle. So what is human resource and labor? Basic perception is that when we talk about labor or human resource, and when it comes to distinguishing between these two, labor is something you give a task to some person and this particular work is being done. That is the labor involved in it. We just measure the output of the work which is being done. But human resource are a creative individuals. It is much more than just assigning the work and getting the work done. So human resource, when it comes to human resources, we generally say that we as individuals, as communities, as people across the world, we are not just the figures. We are not just the numbers, but we are the creative individuals. We have creativity in us, and that creativity needs to be explored, that needs to be uh, made full use of. So it is stated here that human resource refers to creative and social beings that makes contributions beyond labor. It is not just the labor work, that is not just the tangible work which is being done, and it has a huge contribution towards society and civilization. This is the first important thing that we have to understand with respect to human resource and what is labor. Now, in this, it is essential to know, everybody talks about human resource development. You know, HRD is a cell which talks about it, how you have to develop the human resources. Now, one thing is very clear, that when we make when we want to make the full use of this creativity of individuals, or when we want to make full use of the potential of the people who are there in the society, we call it that we have to go for human resource development. We have to develop this human resource. We have to make full use of the potential. And that human resource development, if we go by the definition, it means that creating an environment where people can develop their full potential. Every individual is blessed with so much of talents, with so much of potential. But are we in a position to give them that positive environment? Are we able to give them or create an environment for them to develop their potential? So when we talk about human resource development, it means that we have to develop a kind of an environment for them where they can exploit their full potential, where they can take maximum, where they can learn maximum, and where, according to their likes and interests, they are able to contribute towards the society, towards the other people who are there. So that is the meaning of human resource development. And in this, we have to understand that for every country, people are the real wealth. Wealth is not counted in terms of economic terms, but we as individuals, we say that India is the second most populous country in the world after China. But if we consider that population is a problem, if we think that those large number of the people who are there in the country, they are going to be a problem in the years to come, we will never be able to make full use of them. So we have to understand that these people are the real wealth of our country. And this can become wealth only when we are able to make them, when we go for human resource development. So human resource development refers to expanding their choices. Choice of livelihood, choice of education, choice of skills, choice of living wherever they want, choice of doing whatever they want. That means you have to enlarge the choices. And that comes from so many factors. And as it is said just now, that it is more than the rise and fall of the national incomes. Generally, we talk about the national incomes. We divide the developed and the developing countries on the basis of the income levels, but it is much about that. We have to consider people, human resource, and we have to skill them. We have to give them good food. We have to give them good education. We have to give them proper health benefits, and then only we are able to make use of this thing. And if we talk about the sustainability course which we are doing, when we talk about the sustainable development, it has been seen in the past that the policies of sustainable development are obviously failing when they do not take into consideration the population dynamics, the population figures, the population distribution. So the definition of sustainable development in Johannesburg Summit also in 2002, it was clearly mentioned that education for sustainable development, that has a huge role for initiatives in the field of sustainability science. And therefore, it also encompasses that we have to manage the portfolio of assets to preserve and enhance the opportunities. There are many opportunities which are there in the field, and sustainable development categorically talks about how much of the opportunities and benefits are available to the people so that they can make full use of those opportunities. But for this human resource development, there are certain issues, the central issues which need to be understood. So these are the main issues. So let us see them one by one. Social progress. We cannot have human resource development without social progress. Social progress comes from education, from health, from bringing people out of the poverty, giving them good environment. Then economics. Obviously, the divide between the rich and the poor is widening. That shouldn't be the case. So the profits of economic development must be equally shared among all the groups of the people living in a society. Efficiency in terms of resource use. We see a vast difference in the resource use in the rural areas and in the urban areas. So that efficiency is very important. Equity, participation, and freedom. How well people are able to participate, how much freedom they have in terms of decision making, how much they are aware about the everyday problems that the society is facing, how much do they have their say in voicing their opinions, what are the role they are playing, sustainability, human security, are there any threats of crime, of theft. So it is not simply about educating or giving them good food, but several issues pertaining to the sustainability, from beginning from the culture of the individuals to providing them good educational opportunities to giving them proper means of livelihood. There are so many issues which have been put on here that need to be highlighted, and these are the central issues for human resource development. So whenever we talk about human resource development, we need to ensure that we are able to address all these main features which are central towards developing the population and towards developing the proper human resource in our country. And obviously there is a role of environmental governance also. In past we have seen the power of RTIs. This here I'm talking in context of reforms. There are a lot of reforms. Unless and until you talk about so many issues which are central to sustainable development, unless and until people have the tools, we don't have the reforms. People will not be able to come out and ask for the change, which is very much essential. So there is a need for reforms in the judiciary, in the executive, in the legislatures. At so many levels, there is a need for the reforms. So this is just an example that RTI, with the RTI coming, right to information, people are getting the information about the so many things which are happening, and they are getting aware. They know that how the system works. Similarly, the transparency in the system also comes with these tools. So governance has a very important role. The role of governance ensures that people are there and people have the say, and people will be able to question in case if they are exploited, if they are not attended to. Similarly, development of capacities, capacity building of institutions, whether it is a government, aided, private, whatever the kind of institutions are there, capacity building is very essential. And all this is in vain if there is no monitoring or no evaluation of the work which is being done. So that kind of things, unless and until we have something at the upper level which comes from the governance aspect, we will not be able to address the issues which are at the root level, which are at the grassroots level. We won't be able to address, because India is such a diverse country. A different stretch of the people are living. Minorities are there, poor people are there, rural-urban divide is already there. So what issues are there at the grassroots level? They do not come at the surface unless and until we have proper governance at its play. So human resource development, or in other words, we can say development of the full capacities of the individuals, will not take place until we have proper environmental governance taking place. So you must be aware of this HDI. This is a Human Development Index. It is a composite index which is published every year by UN, and it says that, it says that well-being of the people. Human Development Index means how people are developed and how well-being of the people is there. So according to this, it has since 1990 this things comes, and out of 156 countries, 129th rank is there of India, and it measures the well-being, as it has been said, the well-being or the people is measured on the basis of these three dimensions, that long and healthy life. It is measured by life expectancy of the people. People have a long life, people have a healthy life. Which countries, in which countries, what is the life expectancy of the people? On the basis of that, they calculate that how people are living, how healthy people are. Then knowledge, which is calculated by the literacy rate in different countries, and the decent standard of living, how people are living. However, there are critics of this HDI also, and because it doesn't take into account some factors like gender equity, how gender plays a role, what is the sustainability issues, several other issues, because it is knowledge is okay, but how far this knowledge is being made use of, that is not accounted for. So similarly, the standard of living may be quite resource intensive. So that also is not sustainable in the long run. So there are certain critics of HDI also, and they also point out towards certain things that, so therefore there is another index which has now come into play, and which state a gross national happiness index. We talk about happiness nowadays. We don't, we more of development. Now we consider happiness as something which is more relevant, which is more important. And it is also known that happiness doesn't come from the, it's a function of non-material factors. It doesn't come from the materialistic possessions and all. So this index, as it has been said, that happiness is a function of non-material factors, and these are the certain indicators of happiness. What is your psychological well-being? Are you depressed? Are you sad? So that is psychological state of the people. What is time use? Apart from your work and the essential, how do we spend our time? It specifically means that what hobbies are we pursuing, and what is the time which goes apart from the work and the other things? Are we involved in any kind of a creative work? Community vitality, how community interactions are there, what is the culture, how much time we are spending on health, education, environmental diversity, living standard. It is not possible to meet and to reach at all the indicators at one time, but it simply states that these indicators maximum can be met. Then only we can indicate a happy state of affairs, because obviously it is not possible to meet all these things together. It has been started first of all in Bhutan. It was the first country to come up with this idea of bringing this gross national happiness index, and it is also believed that they are the most happiest countries of the world. So what we mean to say, because these are the different rankings. Initially we were talking about HDIs which talked about development, but these are the happiness rankings which have been also initiated, and out of this it is out of 189 countries which have been recorded, India stands at 144. That means that we are not the happy individuals in our country. The happiness index, as per the ratings of this happiness index, we come at a very low level. That means we are not happy people. And also we know that these are all aspects. Why we are discussing this is that these are all aspects of human resource and human resource development, because one aspect is your economic progress, obviously, but another aspect is this, which combines the factors which we're discussing just now, which contribute towards the happiness. So according to 8th World Happiness Report, social, urban and natural environment combine to make our happiness. So it doesn't come only from the social well-being, but also it requires the natural and the urban well-being to make us happy. And this report is a landmark survey of happiness of citizens across the world. So every individual countries, the surveys have been done, and they tell us about the how happy people are. And World Happiness Report 2018 ranks 156 countries by their happiness levels. And according to this, you can say as of 2018 data, this is the state where it states that Finland, you can see, is top on the list. It means that people in Finland are happiest in the world. Then comes Denmark, Switzerland, Iceland, Norway, Netherlands, Sweden, New Zealand, Austria, and Luxembourg. So there is a need to have a research. There is a need to have an understanding about all these factors, that what makes people happy. And according to me, I feel that when we talk about human resource development, in the very first two slides, we talked about that it is all about creating an environment where people can develop their full potential. So how we can make that kind of environment? So I feel that happiness and happiness indicators are very important in this regard, where we can say that we are on human resource development because the first stage is people are happy, and then only they can contribute towards other factors and other features in the society. So this is another part where we talk about sustainability. You must have studied about sustainability and the meaning of sustainability in your previous lectures. You must have been oriented towards sustainability. So just briefing up here is that it is an environmental policy which is concerned not only with economic development, social harmony, and environmental protection, but also with the responsibility for future generations. So we very well know that whether it is the talk of eco-friendly lifestyles or it is the talk of human resource development, we are not just concerned about the present things, but we also want to talk more and more about the future generation, how they will live in future, what resources they will use, what materials they will consume, how they will survive. So these are all the sustainability aspects. And one thing is very important here is that education plays a very important role towards sustainability initiatives. As sir said, you have studied about environmental education in your previous session, and you must have been oriented towards that, how environmental education in particular and general sustainability education is very important for sustainability initiatives. There is a role of research, there is a role of teaching, there is a role of community engagement. The research is very important because by research we know that what is going to happen in future, what are the major areas coming which need to be explored, what is the teaching, informal methods, in informal methods. It tells us about so many things about sustainability initiatives. And there is a role of community engagement, how communities are engaged. In various places across the country, we have seen communities practicing agriculture, practicing water conservation methods, practicing so many things that are part of community engagement activities, and they are the drivers for sustainability. We don't know that it is sustainability. They themselves don't know that these means are towards sustainability initiatives, but they have been practicing these things since generations, and they are passed on from one generation to another through word of mouth. They know how to go for conservation of the soil. They know how to conserve water. They know how to conserve the landscape. They know how to make use of the resources which are there in their vicinity. So that is the role of community engagement. How communities are engaged, how beautifully they do the things which are very important for sustainability and sustainability, you can say sustainability initiatives. And sustainability is very important in the context of your human resources. We are talking about human resources because at one end we have the large population, large number of people engaged in different types of works, and at the other hand we have the concerns of sustainability. So how to bring these two together? It is possible because there is a momentum in adopting the culture of sustainability. Nowadays we see things have started changing. We have now realized that how important it is to think about the sustainable means. So there is a change, there's a change in the behavior of the people, and this becomes a momentum in that sense that there's a fast urge of the people to change and to make use of the resources there. And if you talk about the business world, because now it is the competitive advantage, people want to make use of this, you can say, green facade which is coming. that how you have eco-friendly products coming and how you can, less carbon footprints and all these are the buzzwords today. So there is a competitive advantage, there is a positive environment, and in terms of ethics also it has now been realized that if you go on ignoring the nature, or if we follow the unsustainable means, ultimately we will be landing up in problem. So in this context, what we were talking just now about education, there is a sustainable development goal 4, SDG 4, which talks about the quality education, and it says that it aims to ensure inclusive, equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So whether it is a vocational education, adult education, online education, blended education, different types of education for all, we can say primary, secondary, higher education. We have the national education policy coming up now. So every aspect of this, because by SDG 4, we can say that through education and through education initiatives only, we can move towards the path of sustainability and sustainable development. And it has 10 targets. What we were talking about, that is about the vocational education, the different types of education. Now it is the different forms of education, because nowadays we do not have only the traditional chalk and talk method or the traditional classroom method. There are different ways of teaching, different ways of educating, and these targets are also being divided according to need of today. And therefore with this SDG 4 and with the concerns of sustainability and with the human resource development, we can this whole is a vicious circle where the inputs from every segment is important for developing the human resource for the 21st century. Now let us now begin with the second part of the session, that is the eco-friendly lifestyle. It is very simple term. We talk about lifestyle, but what is lifestyle? Lifestyle is the manner in which we live, in which we use the resources, in which we behave. So it is simple definition, or you can say different connotation, which says that lifestyle is a matter of chance than choice. The type, the lifestyle of the people in the developed countries is different from that of the developing countries. In the rural and the urban area, we find that the lifestyles is different. So it is a matter of chance of the availability of the resources, how much resources we have, how we are commuting, what we are eating, how we are living, what kind of homes do we have. So it is a matter of chance. And when we have these opportunities, then comes the second stage of choice, where we are able to make a choice between an eco-friendly lifestyle or the lifestyle which consumes most of the resources. So in a nutshell, we can say that lifestyle is a characteristic bundle of behavior. How we live from morning, getting up, to going to a workplace and thinking, moving, commuting, entertaining, what kind of resources we are using. So it is a characteristic bundle of behaviors that influences both self as well as the others. But there are issues, sustainability issues with changing lifestyle also. See the different changes which have occurred during last few years. For example, you think about the economic successes. Just now we were talking about and discussing about the situation in the developed countries and the developing countries. What keeps them apart is the economic success, the economics, how developed a country is, how developed a region is, and it offers different opportunities for the people. People make use of those opportunities. People get better employment opportunities. The paying capacity of the people is more, and therefore, with economic success, the lifestyle changes. Now, if the lifestyle becomes more of resource intensive, if you are able to, use resources more and more without thinking about the sustainability aspect, there comes the issue of the sustainability issues. How our lifestyle changes. So, economic success, paying capacity of the people, standard of living of the people, improvement in the lifestyle of the people in terms of use of the resources, that has an impact on the sustainability issues. So economic success is one of the important factor. Then economic structure. Initially, we were agriculture-based economy. We were using the resources judiciously. But now we have tertiary sectors coming up. We have service-based economy, and the service-based economy relies more on the sectors, which are more based on consumption, more consumption-driven. We are forced to consume more. The use and throw culture, which is coming nowadays. So, how economic structure has changed? Not only the economic success, but the type of jobs which we has to have earlier and now, that is continuously changing. Then household electronics, you can say how our homes were some 15 years back, and now our homes are there. We have a lot of electronic energy consumption, and all these things are very much related. So this comes obviously with economic success and economic changes in the structure. But the type of the aura and the type of the household consumption of the not only electricity, but the other energy sources and other consumables which we are using, that has a big question mark on the sustainability aspects, because we do not know with there is a planned obsolescence nowadays. The products are manufactured so that they have a very less life, 2 years, 3 years at the max, and we are throwing those products. So at one end, it is for promotion of those products, promotion of the business, promotion of the globalization which is occurring across the world. But at the other end, we have a question with the sustainability. We do not know how we are going to ensure that these products will be disposed properly. So it has a pressure on the energy aspect also. And there is a community based living style. Nowadays there is a homogeneous culture. We very often travel from one form to another. People have migrated, different parts of the country are now living in different areas. And with this, we tend to see the culture of the other communities, and we tend to adopt without knowing that how we are whether it suits our culture or not. Similarly, as a simple example, we have seen that how glass manufacturers are there in our country. However, it is not required because we are a warm country. Similarly, culture, because in many societies there is a culture of having materialistic possessions. It is a sign of development. In several countries, owning cars, owning a big spacious house for yourself, that is considered as a status symbol. So that is again uh, you know has a say with the sustainability issues, because the culture varies from one place to another. At one end, we have the culture of spending more, spending lavishly. At one end, we may have the culture of using the resources sustainably. So this all things have a very important aspect with regards to sustainability issues. So what is the solution? We talk about eco-friendly lifestyle. So eco-friendly lifestyle means living a life that is environmentally friendly, where everyone works towards protecting and conserving nature. As simple as it may seem to be, but however, it is not so. Because simply speaking, as it has been said, the lifestyle is eco-friendly when it doesn't pollute the environment, when it uses the resources minimally. But who is there to support you? How we are able to go for eco-friendly lifestyles, how we are able to manage our resources in such a way that we are not able to do harm to the environment through our actions and through our activities. So the bird was first there was an Austrian sociologist who coined the term for the first time in 1929. He talked about eco-friendly lifestyles, and we have to see how we are able to see that we are able to go for eco-friendly lifestyles in today's scenario. So why there is a shift? Why at all we are talking about eco-friendly lifestyles? Because there is a holistic quality of life and rising eco-awareness. We are now more conscious of our actions. We are now more conscious about the future consequences of the things which we are doing today. And in times of COVID, it has become more pronounced. So there is a more, people are becoming more aware of the products which they are buying. So there is a more holistic quality of life and eco-awareness. The climate urgency, which is seen today in terms of the areas getting flooded, temperatures rising, there is a climate urgency. People want to talk about it. People want to bring about a solution for it. So this also has a, a kind of a a kind of a hammer on the people, because they are reading, they are listening, they are talking about all these issues which the planet is facing today. Energy costs, because energy costs are rising day by day, so we have to find out some better source of energy, some alternative sources which are less polluting. And there is a search for local ethnicity. We have the drivers for ethnic products, we have the drivers for more such types of goods which we are using. We are trying to use locally made goods. We have seen that how dangerous it is to it may have transportation cost, it may have other variables associated with it. So there are issues for local ethnicity and other things. So all these factors, uh, but how does it affect, how I'm going to, if I'm going to make a eco-friendly lifestyle for myself, how does it, what factors are there which might make me use these habits to continue, or it may discourage me. So there are certain factors essential and important for eco-friendly lifestyle. For example, concreteness. If I say that use of plastic bags is harmful, and in my lifestyle there is no use of, there is a minimum use of plastic products in my home, so there should be some concrete information. There must be something concrete evidence in support of the fact that I'm not using that product for myself, and I'm not advising anybody else to use that product. So that concreteness of information is very essential, how concrete the information is, and that requires scientific backing, because you cannot go on promoting or preaching about eco-friendly lifestyle unless and until you have the concrete or validity of the information. Then closeness is very essential, that how we tend to keep the things close to us which are which may be, you can say, healthy, and which may not be. For example, simple thing, having green plants in our home, that is a closeness, that is a proximity that everybody wants to have. And similarly, nobody wants to live near a landfill site, nobody wants to live near a polluted industrial area. So that closeness is also very important. We have the habit factor pouring in here. We have the habit of switching on the fans when not in use. So if this habit continues and it has a positive influence in the long run, it has a concreteness associated with it, this habit will make me go for the eco-friendly lifestyle in such a manner that I have the habit of conserving the resources of the nature. Then feedback is very important, where I'm able to get the feedback in the sense that where I can see that whatever I am doing, that is beneficial in the long run, and people are also giving me a positive feedback in the sense that they are following me. It is, for example, as I stated about the use of plastic bags, if I'm only not using plastic bags, polythene bags, and outside everywhere I see that many plastic bags and many polythene bags are being widely used, then that kind of feedback if I get, then naturally I am prone to, at some stage I'll feel that everybody else is using, so I must also use. So that feedback is very essential. Or in other words, we can say that support from the people and following from the people, from everybody, is very essential. The media is very important because it has a great power, especially in times of today's social media. It is very important that it highlights the importance of eco-friendly lifestyle, where it makes people aware of all these issues. So how you can begin with eco-friendly lifestyle? There are simple mantras we very well know in our own homes, in our own workplaces. We have to find out that what are the environmentally damaging ways which we are doing, how to cut short that may vary from person to person and situation to situation. Simple mantra for waste reduction is reduce, reuse, and recycling. Urban farming is promoted nowadays because there are vertical gardens, there are terrace gardens where we are able to, do our bit towards improving the environment. And green choices, we must be knowing what are the green choices available to us and how we are able to use them. And if you talk about India, we are very lucky because since since ages, we have the sustainable lifestyles. We have been guided by sustainable lifestyles. Our traditions, our customs, our way of living, our way of using the resources have always been such that we never have the tendency to throwing away the things or wasting the things. We are always finding the ways how to use the resources again. And there is a minimalistic culture which is already there in our these things. Our traditions, our customs of worshipping nature, deities. We have been using climate friendly practices. We use sun drying. We use different methods of water conservation, and we have the minimalistic culture where we always try to preserve the things. Where so eco-friendly lifestyle, it is inborn. The only thing is that during last few years we have seen that how easy it is to use the things and throw away, but now we have started realizing again that it is not the sustainable means. And as a student of sustainability sciences, um, all our learners, all our students, must be at every stage they must check that how we are able to make a shift in the lifestyles what we are having today and how we can bring about a change in ourselves. Thank you so much. I don't know whether I did justice. um, if you have any queries, we can start. I don't know whether I did justice. I was able to explain because